adjourn promptly at 12 noon today. Okay? You have a choice. Ed Varcho is my partner moderator here. He's got a microphone. As the folks in the back just pointed out, I was not holding the microphone close enough to my mouth to be heard in the back. And I will remind the candidates that you have to do the same. The mic has to be close to your mouth to be heard all the way in the back. You have a choice with your question. If you're uncomfortable talking into the microphone, you've been given a card. Just make sure that your name and address is on that card. You hold your hand up like you would if you would like to speak. And if you don't want the microphone, you hand Ed your card and he will read the question for you. So that's your choice. But Ed's not going to let go of the microphone. He's going to hang on to it. And we know some people don't like the microphone quite this close, and that's why you have the choice with the cards. When we call on you, if you want to speak into the mic, first thing you do is you give your name and your address. I think with that, we got 2 hours. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start up here with Tom. And Tom, what I would like you to do is introduce yourself and briefly explain to the residents why you have chosen to run for the board.
Sure, I hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Tom Crocker. I live on Spartina Crest.
Can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me back there okay now? So my name is Tom Crocker. I live in Spartina Crest. Been here about 7 months, so I'm probably one of the newer members of the community. Why am I running for the board? I think we just need to have a extraordinarily transparent opportunity to let every single member who lives in this community, all 996 home sites or homes that are here, to have an opportunity to be heard. How's that? I'm going to be deaf, but you guys will be able to hear me. So I think it's very important that we have some transparency. My background, I've been in sports and entertainment for the last 15 years, and the last year of my career has been in golf. So I have a very strong understanding of golf, predominantly hospitality based. Opening up Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so that was a big part of my career and that experience. That's a $65 million business that I was running there. Everything we do here in the Low Country, we've got to have a smart plan, and we need to really look at the 3, 5, 10-year plan and what direction we're going, what we want to spend our money on, where we need to be, where we want to go. Are we solely focused on keeping our dues low, or do we really need to make sure that we're being good stewards of our community for the future as well, and that we're protecting property values long term, not just today or tomorrow, but for the future.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we'll talk to the back.
Good morning, can you hear me? No, okay. Can you hear me now? All right, I'm Nancy Fairfax, and I've been here since 2018. Came in from Virginia. Love it down here. Have grandchildren close by and children close by. Why I'm running for the board is I'm a firm believer in if you're going to complain, then you need to try to have some kind of a solution. And so I don't have solutions, but I'd like to try and help to solve some of the issues that are going on within Rose Hill. I'm a project manager, retired. I am a firm believer in project planning. When you're going to spend dollars and everything, you need to have plans in place, details in place, and you also need to be very open and transparent with the community. They are the ones who are putting people in office. They are the ones that we are working for, not ourselves.
Good morning, everyone. I am Mindy Colley. I have been here, we've been property owners for 8 years, moved in almost 2.5 years ago. The reason I am running for the board is that we have been noticing a lack of transparency and maybe a little bit of disconnect between the board and the property owners in the neighborhood. I have a skill set. I'm a sales information analyst, and I would hope that I could put those to work for the community to help with some of the issues that are going on.
Thank you, Nikki. Bob?
My name is Tom Briette. I live at 72 White Oak Circle with my wife and best friend Tina. She's the good-looking one. And we 3 years next month we'll be in that house. Retired after 50 years, mostly in high-speed manufacturing. Most of that was making some of the world's finest alcoholic beverages with Anheuser-Busch, Bacardi, and my last stint was with a 27-acre under-roof facility in Memphis, Tennessee, where we produced beer that was running so bad when I got there, 200 employees would work 3 and 4 days a week because we couldn't keep customers in there because they were running so bad. When I left, we had 500 employees, 7-day-a-week operation, and they went from losing $1 million a month to making between $2 and $3 million a month. And what I was able to do there was apply some of the skills that I had learned with Anheuser-Busch and with Bacardi, and with some educational experiences that I had had on how to identify and solve problems. And high-speed manufacturing, you don't have time to mess around with things that are holding you back, or you go broke. You end up like that company was when I first went there. A lot of those are applicable anywhere, whether you're talking about somebody's health or the health of an organization, any organization. When things don't look right, you start asking why. Why don't they look right? And some of that is the people in the organization needing to realize that there are some things that are wrong. Is that better? Yeah. And I think that that's what we're lacking here. I think that we've got a group of people that are very comfortable with things the way that they are, and I think that more and more people are realizing that things aren't the way that they need to be, and I think that's why this room is full right now. So we've got a big opportunity ahead of you. If you don't want to vote for me, don't vote for me, but make sure that you vote for somebody who can bring about some change and make sure that you are being represented, because you're not being represented now.
Thank you, Tom. Kathy?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy O'Connor. I live at 56 Greenwood Drive. My husband and I moved here in 2018. We built our home in 2017. We retired from the corporate world January 31st, 2020. Can't hear?
Just bring it a little closer to your mouth.
Will I start all over?
There are seats down in front too.
A lot of seats up front, gang.
Don't be shy.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. I retired from the corporate world January 31st, 2020. I work for a global risk management company, 30,000 employees. I was involved in the regional risk management for the East Coast. I was one of the core members. We developed budgets, revenue, sales, and loss ratio. I was also involved in employee development and business development and management. I have served on the audit committee since last year. Decided to run for the board to lend my expertise from my past experiences.
Jack?
Can you hear me? Is that good back there? Okay, my name is Jack River. I live at 72 Piper's Pond. We've lived here, my wife and I, Joanne, since 2008. In 2008, having never been in a community like this, behind the gate, I started to attend meetings almost immediately, and I've probably made 90% of those board meetings in the 12 years or 13 years now that we've lived here. Became involved in the audit committee to begin with in 2012. Served on the audit committee for 2 years, served on long-range planning for 2 years, served on culinary maintenance for 2 years, currently serve as the chair for the Public Affairs Committee. So I'm actively involved in the governance of Rose Hill, understand the governance fairly well after all these years. Helped develop with the audit committee back in 2013. Of course, the Miller Dodson, there was no reserve study here before that. Outside professional reserve study didn't exist. So that was a big contribution by that group of gentlemen. Most of them are still in here in this room right now. That was just redone. I'm well versed on those governance documents. Understand the issues that we're facing right now. Certainly this year was a hot pressure for everybody, and never mind the board that's trying to run this business while COVID is really having an impact. In addition to that, the current board had some internal problems that resulted in several resignations, which made it even more difficult, not only for the remaining members, but also for the staff. And as a result, there's been an awful lot of missteps in these last few months. Can't blame all of it on COVID, but very, very difficult to say the least. And having witnessed this and still being involved as a committee member, I decided to throw my hat into the ring again to see if I can help steady the ship going forward. We have a wonderful community, and it can only get better. And there's an awful lot of change in demographics here, much younger community than it was when I moved here. And we have to address their issues as well as the issues of the members that have been here forever. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. This is a question and answer session. It's not a town hall, it's not a debate. For the members, please word your response as a question, and to the candidates, please answer the question concisely and clearly. I'm going to start things off. I get to ask the first question. You get one question and one follow-up question as long as it's on the same topic. I'll try to model that. Okay, the question is, in the past year, either in person or electronically, how many of the following have you attended? POA Board of Director meetings, POA Board of Director work sessions, POA committee meetings. I'm going to start with Nancy.
All right, the POA board meetings, I have attended as many as I possibly can. With getting on Zoom and everything in person, I was attending all of them. And on Zoom, I think I was unable to attend one due to technical issues. Work sessions, I have only been to one. Committee meetings, I was on the Rules and Regulations Committee, and I think we've met 4 or 5 times. I can't remember. But we are due to meet again.
Okay, thank you. Mindy.
Board meetings, approximately 6 in the last year. No work sessions. The one that I did try to attend, the room was already full. And I have not served on a committee as yet, but I have assisted in community events such as the chili cook-off, trunk or treat, and the barbecue and oyster roasts.
Okay. Tom?
2 board meetings via Zoom and 1 work session.
Kathy?
I've attended all the board meetings in the last year and a half. I've attended every work session last year and this year so far. I've been a member of the audit committee since early last fall.
Thank you. Jack?
I've attended probably 90% of all board meetings since moving here. Even on vacation, sometimes we're called in. basically, every board meeting, some years as president of that board, chaired the meetings. Been very, very active completely in attending all these things, and again, well versed in our documents.
Thank you, Jack. Now my follow-up question. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Tom.
3 board meetings in my 6 months.
Again, this question goes to your participation. This is my follow-up question. We're talking about the last 12 months. In the past 12 months, what Rose Hill community activities have you helped organize or attended? Mindy, I'm going to start with you.
So the first annual chili cook-off, trunk or treat, and the community barbecues and oyster roasts.
Tom?
Oyster roast and food trucks, I'm all about eating. I haven't served on any boards, haven't served on any committees yet.
Okay. Kathy?
I haven't participated in any of the activities as far as recreational or social.
Okay. Jack?
Well, this past year.
Just this past year, yes.
Locked in my house. Pretty much. Did get out and play some golf when it was possible. That's one of the things that COVID, we were allowed to participate in something like that out in the open air, so I tried to do that more this year than probably ever. Did support the food trucks, I did go out and do that, but literally, we tried to be as safe as possible this year.
Thank you, Jack. Tom?
We haven't had an opportunity yet to attend any of the events. We've been here such a short time, so we're looking forward to getting out with the rest of the world and meeting a lot of people.
Nancy?
We've come up here to sit on the, we've come up here to the clubhouse whenever they've had the entertainment outside.
It's your turn. If you have a question, and somebody handed you a card, go ahead and start.
Yeah, let me do this one first and we'll get to.
Then Joel's next.
Okay, this question is from Laura Casey, 5 Queens Court, Crescent. What do you think draws or would draw people to buy in Rose Hill instead of other neighborhoods?
Tom, we're going to start with you on that.
Being a relatively recent buyer here, I can tell you that it's the greatest amenity that we've got is just the natural beauty of the place. I've never golfed here, but I gave up golf when I realized I wasn't ever going to be very good at it. And never played tennis here, never rode a horse here. But Bill Baker Park is unlike anything that I've ever been around in my life, and we're lucky to have that just across the street behind the houses or across the street from us. Just driving down any street here, I can't think of a street that isn't beautiful in Rose Hill. And when you're looking in the area, this is the place that people talk about as being affordable to buy in, affordable to live in, and just absolutely gorgeous. So that's what I think draws people here. Staying on top of the amenities, they're saying that some of, tennis is tapering off as people get older, golf is tapering off as people are reluctant to make that kind of a time commitment to play around the golf. So you got to stay on top of what younger people want and what older people want to hang on to.
Okay. Kathy?
You cannot manufacture the natural beauty of Rose Hill, the flora and fauna when you enter through the gates. The homes are diversified, and none are alike. They all have different views, and the parks and the walkways. It's just a beautiful, beautiful community, and we are blessed to live here.
I would echo everything that everybody up here just said. This is an amazingly beautiful place, and for many years we were coming down to Hilton Head, and especially in 07, 08, we wouldn't come in here because of the golf course being overgrown, looking everywhere but Rose Hill to find a home. And finally, we were supposed to come in and have a look, get beyond that gate and really see what's inside. And we were just struck that day and decided this is it, we're gonna find our home here somewhere. And the diversity of homes, the diversity of individuals that live in the plantation, it's just amazing. It's even more amazing now having grandkids and myself, my wife and I. It's wonderful to see all these young families in here now. And I think some of the things that brought them here, the current group over the last 5 years that have moved in, is the result of some very strong board actions resulting in this clubhouse and staying on top of the dock situation. We had a hard time there for a few years. I think we finally found an operator, a single operator, not a corporate, and that seems to be the key to making this work. So I'm just thrilled to death to be here. I love when I'm away. I can't wait to get back, and I'm just struck by the beauty of 278 before I even go in that gate. What we're looking at now is the only place that's going to stay that way in this area forever, because you haven't lost that North American Land Trust that protects that property.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Tom?
Well, this is the third community I've lived in Bluffton. I moved here almost 11 years ago in when our home values and the market was terrible. I bought in Berkeley Hall and quickly discovered that after 2 years in there and extraordinarily increased dues, we were fortunate enough to actually buy a house and sell a house in there and make a little bit of money, which is crazy. We had a lot in Hampton Hall I built in there, stayed in there for 5 or 6 years. And you know, as we looked for our new home after selling that, you know, this was a targeted community for us. It was one that wasn't a pulp pine forest that was used for paper mills. It wasn't clear cut. It is an extraordinary piece of property, and we should continue to look at this piece of property for what it is, maintaining it, keeping it beautiful, keeping it well maintained, continuing to hold our property values, if not increase them every single year, and just to have a great community to live in for the long term and for our children.
Thank you, Tom. Nancy?
Just like everyone else, Rose Hill is a beautiful community. I'm also going to say, you know, POA dues is a big driver. It definitely is. I'm not going to shy away from it. We do have wonderful amenities. Do some of them need cleaned up? Yes, they do. But I will tell you, coming from Virginia, where I could reach my hand out the window and give my neighbor a drink, I don't have that here in Rose Hill. There's plenty of space between the homes. It's just beautiful.
Mindy?
Yeah, and I'll round it out saying basically the same thing. It's the beauty. When you drive in and you hit White Oaks after you come through the gate, I mean, you can't get another look like that in any of the other communities. You know, it's very peaceful, the trees. That's a natural beauty that we didn't really have to pay for, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining it and keeping it that way for the long haul.
Okay.
Jay, we have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Based on what you just said, as a board member, what would you do to improve the item or the area you just mentioned? So we talked a lot about what you like about it. What would you like to see improved?
Okay, Kathy, we're going to start with you.
I would definitely like to see the amenities improved. I mean, if you look back at all the surveys we have done since 2013 and 2016, we're looking at what the members wanted. They wanted the pools updated. They wanted the golf course. They wanted Colleton Point updated. We have 3 pools here in our community. Not one of them meet the ADA requirements. And we do have, I'm sure, several members who would need those facilities. I also would like to keep the neighborhood upgraded as far as the homes being taken care of, to keep the property values up. As we all know, it's a very hot market at the moment. I would like to see better contracts with our tenants, and instead of having them a tenant, to make them a business partner, because when they are business partners, we both benefit from having a mutual partnership.
Okay. Jack?
I would agree with Kathy on the content that she just expressed. We have made tremendous strides to get to the point where we are right now. Probably 5 years worth of very hard work to see what you're seeing right now. That must continue, and it has to be with the demographic changes that have happened here in the last 3 or 4 years in mind. Much younger community. The poll system has to be upgraded, probably a new one added. That's been in the plans for years. Talent Point as well needs to be done as soon as possible. That's been on the table probably for 7 years. And other things took priority over that, but it's time to address those. And hopefully that can happen in the short term, not the long term.
Thank you, Jack. Tom?
I agree. It's that maintenance and upkeep of our community. You know, you drive through the roads, a lot of the wax myrtles are now creeped up over the roadways. Some of that needs to be pruned back. We really need to focus on working with our contractors, as pointed out. We really, at some point, need to look at our contractors versus it taking in-house too, and do a full, cost analysis, cost breakdown of what that looks like to really get the full value of what we're paying for as folks that live in the community. I think it's really important that we look at these things. The pools obviously need to be upgraded. I've got a 12-year-old, and that's certainly one thing she has pointed out to me already. And we're still going to go swimming. We're still going to have fun. I do believe that we need to do something with Colton Point. I don't think we should be dropping, $500,000 into that old building. I think there's a lot more that could be done in that spot to increase our property values and to really make that a bright spot in our community that people want to go there and spend time there, whether it's library space, card room space, deck space, whatever that might look like. But there needs to be some more in-depth analysis done in that piece of property before we put any more money into it, or whether we just tear it down and make it look spectacular for long-term and long-term future. So,
Nancy?
When you get to the end of the line, pretty much everything's been said.
That's okay. Go for it.
But number one, the pools. Yes, the pools need to be upgraded. We do need to have some way for handicapped people to get in and out of those pools. I agree with that. I also agree with the fact that Colleton Point, I'm not sure that we should sink a ton of money into that. I think that there are other options we could look at. And maybe it would mean even just making it a park area. I'm not saying build a mansion or anything, but our revenue from Colleton Point was $2,000 last year. Well, COVID, I agree, but that's what they've written in the budget for next year also. So, but there's, I think putting in a bigger playground would be better. Over where Woodington is, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a bigger playground. If you're going to put a pool there, then it doesn't have to take up the whole space. We can also make some play areas for the kids.
Mindy?
Yeah, again, end of the line, agree with everything that's been said. I do think that our pools need to be upgraded. Do we need a $1.2 million brand new one? I'm not sure about that. But I also think that before we start spending a lot of potential cash on our amenities, we need to know exactly what we're doing with that for those amenities to change them. And then I also think that we need to make sure that our infrastructure and the other things about keeping our beauty and our property values and those types of things first, kind of a needs versus wants situation. So I think we have to take all of that into consideration.
And Tom?
So in my opinion, one thing that we're really lacking in this community is a vision. and the vision shouldn't be what anybody up here thinks or anybody on the board thinks. The vision needs to be a consensus of what the residents in this community want. At one end of the spectrum, you've got people who maybe they've lived here for 30 years and they're retired and they only want to stick with what's in the Miller Dodson. It says you're going to spend $13 million over the next 40 years to maintain this thing just the way it is. And that's okay for them to feel that way. You've got people on the other end of the spectrum who want an Olympic swimming pool with a lazy river and water slides. And that's okay for them to think that too. And somewhere in the middle is a happy place that everybody can live with, hopefully. And that's consensus. Consensus is really underrated. People think you need to agree on everything. You don't. You need to have something you can live with and something that you can defend. And if a realtor could go out there and say, this community is headed in this direction as a group, it really doesn't matter what you end up with if it's what everybody wants. And there are a few ways to figure that out. And the satisfaction survey, I think, was a good start. But even that satisfaction survey, the one question on there that said, would you be willing to pay an assessment for a new pool? 2/3 of the respondents said that they were not willing to pay an assessment for that. And whether you're paying through an assessment or paying through your dues or borrowing money to do it, it's still money coming out of your pocket one way or the other. So getting that vision is number one, as far as I'm concerned. And then the board can figure out the mission. That's how you're going to get to the vision. You know, the other night I said, when everybody gets on an airplane, everybody's got a vision of walking off that plane at their destination. The mission is the pilot's job. You don't go up there and tell the pilot how to get there. You don't tell them how high to fly or how fast to fly. You just want to get there in one piece and get off the plane. So let's get a vision as a group that we can all get behind and not get real emotional about what end of the spectrum you're on, as long as we're somewhere in between that's a livable place for everybody.
Okay, I think Joel had his hand up first, and then we're going to come to Ms. Cheer.
Thank you for running for the board, all of you. My name is Joel Campbell. I've been a property owner at 4 Longview Lane on Belfort Point for 23 years. I'm a past president of this board. My question to all of you, and I have a follow-up, is for the 6 positions that became open, what were you told at the nominating committee meeting, if anything, about how those positions were to be filled? That's a question to all of you.
Okay, Jack?
That was not a topic of conversation with me. I'm sorry. Thank you. That was not a topic of conversation with me. I was in there, as I explained in the last meeting, for over an hour. It was a well-run interview. I enjoyed it immensely. I hope the folks I was in there with, I think they did, a lot of smiles. But that never was discussed, ever, in my 1 hour in there.
Thank you, Jack. Tom?
I don't believe we spoke about it as well. You know, I spent an hour and a half with the group and really enjoyed my time as well, just talking. And really we talked, I'm relatively new, so I asked a ton of questions and gave my thoughts and processes, and it was just an enjoyable time, and I enjoyed meeting the ladies and the guys at that event as well.
Thank you, Tom. Nancy?
I actually was told, I was given at the end of the interview, I was told the next steps would be, and it was that they would submit to the board. The committee did a great job. They were taking good notes, had good questions and everything, and they would submit all of that to the board. At the time of voting, it would be the top winners would take the 4-year positions, and then the lesser votes would get the other positions.
Mindy?
I was told the same thing, that it would be based on votes, that the highest votes would get the longer terms, lower votes would get the shorter terms.
Okay. Tom?
And I would echo what Nancy said. The nominating committee did a great job. They actually made it an enjoyable experience, and it's the first interview I ever had that I actually enjoyed. But at the end, I actually asked what the next steps were, and I was told that of the successful candidates, those with the most votes would get the longest terms. The successful candidates with the fewest votes would get the shortest terms.
Okay. And Ken?
It was the first job interview I ever sat for that I didn't discuss salary. We had a long conversation, and it was really enjoyable getting to know the members of the nominating committee, but I do not recall being told that there were any number of years affiliated with any position.
And Joel had follow-up.
My follow-up is to Ms. O'Connor. You've heard from other people on the board or in the candidates how it has been done in the past. For the last 20-plus years, the top 4 vote getters would get the 3-year terms, the next 2 would get the 2-year terms. My question to you is, you've been separated out on the ballot, that you virtually are appointed to the board. You run unopposed. Did the board tell you, or any member of the board tell you, why you were going to be given that special status? Is there some experience in your background? You've been here 2 years?
Thank you, Joel. Let's let her answer.
Just let me correct you, I've been here 3 years. No, I was running for the board. I received a call from the board asking me if I would serve from a midterm for maybe 6 weeks until the election. I never questioned why or anything else. I was asked to serve, and so I did. I was told that it would be a 2-year position rather than 3. Was I comfortable with that? And I said, absolutely. I was running for the board. I was asked by several neighbors to please run for the board. I have served on the audit committee. I've been to every board meeting and every work session. And I am very familiar with the workings of the board. I've had mentors in the area that have actually served on the board that have come, helped me review the Miller-Dobson report. I have neighbors that have been here 25 years, 20 years. Those are the people I talk to most of the time about Rose Hill. I listen to what they have gone through, and they've said, we've had hard times, but we've come out of them. And so I was asked a question, would I serve? And I said, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Now, Joel directed his question to Kathy. If anybody wants to comment on his follow-up, now would be the time to do it. Not seeing anybody jumping at that. I think Ms. Kelly was next, from what I saw.
Okay, my name is Jerry Kelly. I've lived here for 26 years. I live at 74 Piper's Pond. Now, each board member is assigned to be a liaison to a committee. If either one of you are elected, which committee do you think you are qualified for and why?
Tom, we're going to start with you.
I'd like to be on the Strategic Planning and Leadership Committee. I would start. Am I qualified? I think so. I've had a long track record in the last 15 years of driving businesses forward and finding solutions to problems. There are no problems. There are only opportunities for us to fix it. I think every single one of you are looking for something a little bit different for your needs here in the community. I think we need to, as we get significantly more transparent and start, everyone hears but nobody listens. I think we need to become a very good listening board to understand what's being said out there so we can move forward with a good strategic plan for 3, 5, 10 years and moving forward from that.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Nancy?
I would like to be on the Rules and Regulations Committee. Since I've been serving on it, I feel like it would just be a natural fit for me to slide right back into being a liaison on it since I understand where we're at and where we're going with that.
Thank you. Mindy?
Yeah, I would like to serve on the Communications Committee. I think that that's important, and I have, I work, my job consists across 3 customer teams, keeping 20 salespeople all connected and together. So I feel like I have that skill set that could help in that area.
Thank you, Mindy.
I really don't have a preference. A lot of my career, I would jump from one kind of unexpected position to another in a lot of things that I never had any experience at or even saw run. So I actually almost prefer things that I don't have expertise in, because I think you need a fresh set of eyes to look at problems from a fresh perspective. So it really doesn't matter to me which committee I would liaison.
Okay. Kathy?
I am currently serving as liaison to the audit committee, as I have served on the audit committee in the past. And prior to I even going on the audit committee, I had reviewed the contracts for Rose Hill. I made an appointment with the office, and I asked, the first one I reviewed was Low Country Kitchen, as that contract had just been amended. And the next contract I asked to review was for the Equestrian Center. Both of those contracts spurred me to get involved with Rose Hill. I had planned on doing that anyway, because one of my specialties was contract review in my professional life. And the audit committee did ask me if I would be the liaison from the audit committee to the board for contract review. I have made recommendations, and I would be happy to review any contracts that are coming due, which there are 2 more this year.
Thank you, Kathy. Jack?
Well, the president of the board assigns liaisons to the committees, and I have been liaison to just about every one of those over my 7 years as a board member. I'm comfortable with whatever the president would ask me to do. I would happily serve as a liaison to any of these committees.
Okay, good. In the back.
Hi, my name is Bob Zipsey. I live at 21 Belfort Point Drive. I have a question for the board in consideration that we're asking you to manage the business of this neighborhood. My question is this: what goals and metrics are you setting, or would you set in your mind to know that the investments in amenities and the like would be actually achieving what you want to achieve? As they said in Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So I'm asking you, in terms of a board, what is the goal, the metric that you would measure against in terms of knowing that we're headed in the right direction?
Okay. Nancy?
It's a tough one, and I appreciate it. I think the goals are the community's goals. I think that we would need to have the last survey that was done, or what was it called, a satisfaction review, was done a couple years ago. That was back in 2018. Demographics have changed a lot. I think that we should have a third-party vendor run another survey and get a feel of where we are with the community, and then go forward from there. We also need to engage the community more, or give more opportunities for the community to engage with the board to help them give their goals to us.
Thank you. Maybe you.
Yeah, I think what we would gauge against is how the community is feeling. And I think in order to do that, you have to do a survey. We have to know what our demographics are so that we know who we're serving, because the board does serve at the discretion of the membership. So we need to know what their needs and wants are. And speaking to something that Tom had said earlier about, a community vision, that's a good idea. And I think that that's what we would need to use to gauge our results by.
Good question, Bob. I think that the biggest opportunity that we're missing out on here is, I think the board has become comfortable with the only stream of income being our dues that we pay. Because the 2 businesses that operate in this building, we're not making any money off of them, and we should be making a pretty good penny off of them. It didn't make any sense to me for our golf course operator to put a ridiculously low price on 3-year memberships. It's great for golfers. I would have jumped all over when I was golfing, but all they did was flooded the golf course with people that were not making any money off of. The restaurant, my wife and here my wife and I were here Saturday at lunchtime, and the place should have been packed. And to me, a restaurant that's not packed, there's something not right about that. Whether it's the prices or the service or the food or it's not the environment, because I mean, that was the best part of the meal, was sitting out on the screened-in patio. So, Bob, to answer your question, we are a business, we're a nonprofit business, but we should be making money at every possible opportunity. The equestrian center is another one. We should be maximizing our potential there, and we're not. So we're missing out. So maybe instead of having to take out a $2.5 million loan, or choosing to take out a $2.5 million loan, it could have been 1.5, or it could have been 1.75, if we had another income stream to offset some of what we're borrowing.
Kathy?
The pulse of the community really comes from the committees. We have long-range planning committee in the community. We have surveys that come back to these committees. The committees feed the board. The board aligns itself then with the general manager and the staff. The board does not do or complete any projects on their own without the membership. The membership drives this community, and it's very important that you get involved in a committee. Yes, I would agree certainly with doing another survey just to see what we could possibly do. But I believe the contracts that are coming up for renewal this year, the 2 that are coming up, will certainly be more favorable for Rose Hill and the members. There's a lot to be done with the restaurant. The clubhouse should be more available to our members during off times. The equestrian center certainly could make a lot more money for us, especially with special events. The golf could have special events, as so could the tennis. We could also derive income from the gate fees. So there's a lot of information that will be coming forward, I'm sure, from the board in the near future.
I'm going to echo and agree with everything I've heard so far. The survey issue, that should be no less than semi-annual with the rapid change of the population here. Anything that's more than 2 years old is not reflective of roots here. So that should be a definite. I think that has happened actually in the last 3 or 4 years, but that must continue no less than every 2 years. And I'll pass them out.
Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. So we really need to look at things differently. You know, am I a big fan of having, and they're probably listening, I'm sorry, but should we be having a management company here run our golf course and our restaurant? Should we be doing it ourselves for ourselves to take care of ourselves? Should this place that we paid for that we're sitting in today be available for everybody every day? It should. And it's something that we should do a deep dive in and look at what those cost benefits are of doing it ourselves and managing it ourselves and having a board associated with it to oversee it and to do it right. Do we have KPIs to measure goals here? My guess is no. Are we using any measuring standards, or are we measuring expectation from the community? Are we using SurveyMonkey 4 times a year to find out what the demographic changes are? My guess is we've sold 60, there's been 60 homes sold here probably in 6 months that we have absolutely no idea who they are. And I'm one of them. There's been no meet and greets. We can do them outside. We can do a cocktail reception. We can do something to bring the community together and listen and understand and get measurable performance pieces for us to get better.
Who do you have back there?
Good morning. This is Ron Cecil. I live at 26 Rose Hill Drive. I'm a 20-year property owner. This question is for the board, for the candidates here, is being asked for a group of property owners who live in close proximity to the pickleball courts, who have been putting up with this situation for more than 4 years and are tired of the noise and the negative impact that this is having on our property values.
This is most, ours included, our forever home. If you are elected, and trust us, we're not against pickleball. We're against.
Let's get to the question, Ron.
Okay,
Thank you.
the question is, will you commit to shutting down and relocating the pickleball courts that are allowing people to presently break the noise rule every day?
Okay, I think we got it. Mindy, we're going to start with you on this.
Lucky Mindy.
I feel special. Ron, we've talked, and, I would say if this is an issue that is involving numerous property owners, and if there is something that is taking place that is in violation of our covenants, bylaws, or rules and restrictions, it is the general manager and the board's duty to address this situation. We have to listen to our property owners. We have to know what their struggles are. We have to be willing to sit down and listen to them. Do I have an answer for how to solve that problem today? I do not. And I'm totally comfortable saying that. But what I am willing to do is to put in the legwork to try to figure it out so that everybody wins.
Okay. Tom?
Full disclosure, I'm an avid pickleball player. I'm one of the guys making noise over there in Ron's backyard. If you Google what is the problem with pickleball, it is a loud game. And thousands of communities in the US are fighting the same battle. And there are people who say that they can put fencing up and put, berms up and put plantings up that'll minimize that, but it's still gonna be, it's a loud game. So I think that the proper homework probably wasn't done before those courts were put in there. And I do think that they need to be relocated. But I would relocate them before we shut those down, because that was an amenity when I moved in, and it's an amenity that there are some people, maybe even in this room, that was a factor for them to move in here, because most of when we talk about the amenities of the upcoming, up-and-comers, successful communities, all of them have pickleball, but they're not in somebody's backyard. So I think that, I've heard you loud and clear, you and I've talked about it for the past few weeks. It needs to be addressed because it is a problem no matter where you go. It's a loud game.
Thank you, Tom. Kathy?
Mr. Cecil, I feel your pain. I would not want pickleball in my backyard. I certainly would look into having them relocated, and again, a discussion on where they could be relocated to without disturbing anybody's peace.
Jack?
I've spoken to, I had the opportunity over the last several years to listen to several of pickleball players. And anyone I've talked to understands that issue and are in agreement with moving them. I understand what Tom said, that he'd like to see it not be moved, absolutely be moved, but never shut down. The problem with some of that is you do have rules and regulations. If you read those, there are rules being broken every day in Baxter's house. So it's not quite as simple as just as it sounds. You're there pretty much every day, so you understand that noise every day. I've been over there several times. It is loud, not just the game itself, but the people playing it. It's a very active game. It's a fun, emotional game. A lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. Sometimes inappropriate language, but that's in any sport, pretty much. So somehow this group has to get together and come to some kind of accommodation very, very quickly. I understand there's been some effort to do that has not been successful. For some reason or another, the parties involved haven't been able to meet. That must happen, it has to happen ASAP, not over a period of time. It has to happen right away.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Tom?
Pickleball is a value-added amenity here in our community. We certainly understand. I feel your pain because, I've been around the sport a little bit. I've seen acoustic screening put up. It doesn't work. So that's a non-starter there. But there has to be some place in the community that we can have pickleball where everybody can enjoy it and it's not affecting anybody's life long-term as well. So.
To be honest with you, I know nothing about pickleball. So I did talk to them, and I'm going to run by their house to see how loud it is, because like I said, I know nothing about pickleball. But if the noise is breaking the noise ordinance and it's as annoying as everybody's indicating, then we do need to find space somewhere within here to get it moved so that it doesn't impact any neighbors at all. Where that space is, I'm not sure. It would mean a tour of the whole neighborhood and, making sure that, again, if you're gonna move it, you see how close it is to the homes, and no matter if it's a great distance or not, you still talk to those neighbors and let them know we're gonna be moving them to this spot.
Okay. And who do we have back there? Okay.
Bruce Clemens, and I live on 9 Smartina Crescent. My question is, first of all, before I hit the question, I really want to thank you guys for doing what you're doing. I hope you know what you're getting into, because you're going to get into stuff like these kind of questions I'm about to ask, and I do have a follow-up. Please describe what is an income statement or a balance sheet. I'll give you the option, either one, income statement or a balance sheet, and then I have a follow-up.
Okay. Tom, we're going to start with you this time.
I'm much more familiar with the income statements coming from the world of manufacturing. It's telling you what you've got coming in. It tells you what you've got going out in detail on both ends. You're greatly detailed on all of your income streams, and you're very detailed on what's being paid out. I'm oversimplifying it, but as I've done the deep dive on the online documents on the website, it's like drinking from a fire hose, but there are a lot of things missing out there. Too many things are rolled up. Not enough things are broken out to where you can do any kind of forensic investigation as to how something happened. I hope that answers your question, Bruce.
Kathy?
Yes, I am familiar with financial statements, balance sheets, your assets, your liabilities, your expenditures, projections. And I must say our audit committee and all our financial people have done a tremendous job in Rose Hill in the last several years. A lot of my mentors and neighbors have told me that Rose Hill went through very hard times, and it's with the expertise and the diligence coming from most of the people who have worked so hard on the audit committee with financials and everything, getting Rose Hill on such a path as it is today with a solid financial balance sheet that we have collateral and we can go to any bank and have a loan provided at very great rates. It's called leveraging when you are doing what the audit committee has done so far.
Thank you, Kathy. Jack?
I would agree with Tom. With his comments, as well as the ones just made. And, but I prefer to focus on the profit and loss budget performance statement that is out there every month. And it basically follows revenue and expense and how the organization is following the budget. It shows over and under on a monthly schedule. It's out, like I said, every month. That's the most important document to look at financially, to see where we are performance-wise with regard to our budget, revenue, and expenses.
I think that operating budget, and I I really think that we need to have a little bit more detail in each of those line items for review. I think, as was said, you know, when you get in there and start breaking down those documents, it's pretty high level. There's not enough meat and potatoes to look at. Where's the money going and why? You can't dig down or drill down and really get an understanding what we're spending money on. You just get that top end line number. I think from a planning perspective, we shouldn't be borrowing money. We should have our capital reserve fund. It should have been being built from day one when this community was built. There should have been an effort to put capital resources into a bond or fund or future or whatever we're saving for the future so we can spend it when we need it to continue to improve the performance of the community and, again, maintain property values or increase them.
Just as Tom said, it's revenues coming in, expenses going out. I agree that it needs to be monitored along with the budget to make sure that we're not overspending on line items when we can find what the line items are. I also believe that the books should be balanced at the end of the year, at the end of the month. We should be able to see what those statements are for the end of the month at the following month's board meeting. Running in a month behind, I believe, kind of puts you at a disadvantage when you're looking at what your budget says or what your balance is in October and you're making plans in December.
Mindy?
Yes, I focus more on income statements because that's where my job is at as well. Reflecting what you've got coming in and what you've got going out. You know, I agree with all of my fellow candidates. I think that there's a lot of detail missing on our budget statements and all of the financials that are online that I have been able to find. If you look at the line item budget and you look at the CapEx statement, there's some discrepancies there. I'd like to see those shored up a little bit. So yeah.
Okay, and I think the gentleman had a follow-up.
Thanks. As a follow-up, I just want a wag or a swag on this, just a bounds, and then what a percentage bounds. What percentage of the operating budget, the annual operating budget, should be spent on long-term planning?
What percentage of the operating budget is to be spent on long-term planning? That's the question. Ms. Kathy.
That would depend definitely on collaboration with the audit committee and all of the financial people and what the members are asking for us to be done. We do go by the Miller-Dobson report and projects that have to be completed by a certain year in order to prevent further financial ruin down the road that you haven't taken care of. We do have strong financials at the moment. We do have reserves, and we have also an emergency fund. So Rose Hill is in good position. I'm not sure exactly on the percentage we should be spending. That all depends on what is required at the moment.
Okay, Jack? I love the fact you're
I have nothing to add to that. That was very well said, right on point. Nothing should be done without collaboration with the committees. The board protects itself by doing that. Several things have been done in the past with where expenditures were needed that we didn't have the money to do certain things. And without the recommendation of LRP, long range planning, and audit, you should not move on without that. There was a meeting I attended at one point where 40 members were present on a very large project that had to be undertaken, all of long range planning, all of audit, and all of the board. And that's the way really to operate, not in a vacuum, but making use of all our members here and their expertise.
Okay, Tom?
You know, a lot of companies will spend between 3 and 5% on capital planning and investment and looking long-term forward in your business to try to plan accordingly for a 3, 5, 10, 15-year plan. You know, what does the POA look like? Do I think we should be spending 2% on that? Absolutely. We should be looking forward to what the community looks like. And regardless of your age, your demographic, or whatever, we should all be very forward-thinking, forward-set on this is what we need to spend and why, and this is what it's going to bring to our community. This is what it's going to do for your home pricing in the future. And again, I look, everything I do is for my daughter, so that's what's important to me, so.
I agree that it is pretty much what is in the plan and what the community is looking for. But with that said, long-term planning includes all of your infrastructure and everything. And if we're going to keep lagoons functioning and the piping going the way it needs to and everything, then we do need to dedicate a percentage on a yearly basis into that fund. What it would take, I would say right now we would have to look at Miller Dots and what the percentage is that they say for the infrastructure though. For amenities, like Colleton Point, I'm not saying is an infrastructure, but to keep the community safe and sound and financially sound, then we would need to, I just don't have a percentage though right now.
Okay. Mindy?
That's a tough one to answer right here, without having all of the information readily available, and it does depend on what we're doing. What is the top priority today that has to be handled?
Bruce, I'm not kicking the can down the road here, but it all ties back to what that shared vision is. If you take that shared vision of what everybody wants, and Miller Dotson tells you what percentage of their income from us should be going into the Miller Dotson, into the reserve replacement fund. So that's pretty well set. And there's gonna be some stuff rolling off that too. The irrigation piping is in Miller Dotson, so that's $1 million gonna be coming off of that. It was spread out over 10 years and we're doing it all in one. But it's hard to say what we're going to reserve CapEx for if we don't know what everybody wants as a group. You know, if we're gonna say, we're gonna go for the big wave pool, then it's gonna be a much higher percentage than what a lot of people in this community are gonna wanna do. So it's almost a number that you gotta back into based in part on what the community wants in that vision. You know, so I can't give you a percentage because I don't know what that vision involves.
We have someone in the back.
Thank you. Julie Marangello. My question is regarding income and expenses also. We are always focusing on additional revenue, but we don't really, in my opinion, look carefully at our expenses. And my question is, for instance, this is a line item report. Last year, our maintenance personnel expenses were $169,300. This year, they're $233,000, okay? Our office expenses for personnel and benefits last year were $276,000. This year, they're $374,700. Our office policies, our hours have not changed. My question is, would you support a review or an evaluation of our entire policy and procedures of running this plantation?
Let's see, we're gonna start with Tom.
I think we should do a full community-wide review of our bylaws, all of our covenants throughout I think they're probably, I think they may have been done 15 years ago, but again, 15 years is a long time. I believe we should go and do a full review of all of our bylaws and covenants. I think it's time. That's a good question. I'd like to know why we're $138,000 over budget as well. You know, because it's limited hours over there, especially through this COVID process as well. So that's a good question.
It's funny, Julie, because I brought the budget with me. And I too was looking at the expense, you know, how much it is to run this the POA office and everything. I think that we could, or we should, definitely look at the bylaws and the covenants. They do need to be updated. It's time. Demographics have changed. Life has changed. And I think that we also could do just a detailed review of where we are, what we want. Are we getting what we need out of the POA office? Do they have enough resources? Do they have the background? Can we do better by going with a management company? I don't know. Those are things that we could compare back and forth to see if quite possibly we could save some money. But there are also ways that we could increase revenue by, don't hit me, Tom, charging the pickleball people to come in and play pickleball. We could, review those fees also.
Okay.
Julie, to answer your question, yes, I'm in full agreement that a detailed review of all income and expenses needs to be done sooner versus later. We need to understand why those numbers increased, if it's an increase in personnel, if it's an increase in office supplies, what is that? Why are we spending, I think the number was, and you've got the budget there, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, $12,000 on computers. For what? I'm a little bit confused by that. But yes, I do believe that a review is definitely in order. And I think that we also, as a community, it is our responsibility, and there are some of you that have heard me say this before, you have to inspect what you expect. If you expect someone to do a certain job at a certain level, you need to inspect and make sure that that's being done. Whether that's security, whether it's ground maintenance, whether it's the POA office, regardless of what it is. We hold our property owners responsible for keeping their property, maintaining it in a certain manner and behaving a certain way. We need to do the same thing with every contractor that comes in here. And it wouldn't just be pickleball. Let's look at all the golf attendants and the tennis attendants and the folks that come to the restaurant. There's plenty of opportunity to increase our revenue.
Julie, you're asking the right question, is why. Anytime anything doesn't make sense, it's usually because we don't have a good understanding of what all the facts are, and clearly we don't here. And anytime that I was preparing a budget to present to my boss, there would be another column there in that budget sheet that would have comments. And if you had a big increase or a big decrease from year to year, either from year to year budget to budget or year to year actual to budget, you would put a couple of bullets in there along with, if you're jumping up $250,000, you would have one that would explain $100,000 of it, another one would explain $75,000 of it, and another would explain the rest. So that my boss, the last thing I wanted to do was get a call from my boss wanting to know what's up with the budget, because he couldn't understand. He was a real estate attorney in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He didn't know anything about making beer, but he owned 3 breweries. The last thing I wanted to do was get a call from him on something that was wrong with that budget. So it doesn't have to be in great detail, but it should be enough to make you comfortable that you know what's driving this much of that, what's driving this much, and what's driving this much. And then you can ask why this, or why this, or why this.
Okay. And what's the plan to reduce that cost?
Kathy, your turn.
The budget for the management office may have increased, and that's due to the number of homes and residences that we have currently in our community. Julie, you mentioned that we have limited office hours. Corporate America is reducing the office hours, and the management staff in our office, they may say they're closed at 1 p.m. on Friday, but if you noticed, they're working from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 every day, and I can guarantee you, those people are not leaving the office at 1 o'clock on Friday. They're catching up on work on quiet time. Regarding maintenance, most of the CapEx, a few items from CapEx have been moved into regular maintenance on the budget. And anybody is welcome to attend our budget meetings, the audit meeting, committee meetings. You may be asked to step outside when we're discussing some members' financials, but absolutely come, and we'd be happy to explain to you our budget process, line by line, expenditures and income.
Yeah, I have it. Julie, in answer to your question specifically about reviewing all those documents, bylaws and rules and regulations, and of course the covenants, in light of what's happening at the moment, that presses that point clearly. They need to be updated and reviewed. I believe the last time the update of bylaws and covenants was 2007 and 8. Before that time, that document was about 13 or 14 pages long. That's from the inception of Rose Hill. And that was changed to reflect what you see now, which is almost 60 pages of information in both the bylaws and the covenants. They do need to be reviewed, especially in light of some of the questions being asked now by the younger community. Clearly there's an update needed, and that would take quite some time, but it should be done ASAP. The hours in the office, I agree with what Jeff said. They were actually expanded because they eliminated lunch during the week. That office was always open, I thought it was 8:30, it's 8 to 5. So from 12 to 1 years early, they used to close the doors. That was more detrimental to access than what they have right now. They're open all day. Should that be expanded on Fridays? Possibly a good idea with the expansion of our community membership. It's been doubled in the last 6 years. Residents that are on site. With regard to outside management, it's been tried here, not as actually it wasn't a trial. There was a general manager that left overnight one time, probably back in 2010 or 12, I don't remember exactly. And we did hire outside management, and I'm not precisely sure what that cost was, but I believe it was over $40,000 a month. And that person was rarely here. That office was closed. If you wanted to get a pass for your car, a sticker, you have to go to their office, which God knows where that was. So having it on site, inside management, our own management, has many, many benefits that you don't get with outside management, including the cost.
Okay, I know we have some folks up front that are gonna.
Jay, Julie has a follow-up.
That's where I was gonna go next. I knew you had a follow-up, but thank you, Ed. Go ahead.
It's not clear on hours. I know that the office comes in at 8 o'clock, and I remember when that was changed, which was to deal with the contractors. But one of the things I was talking about, with the change in demographics of this community, shouldn't we be open maybe a Saturday morning or 2 Saturday mornings a month, or a couple of evenings late a month, to accommodate all?
Okay, we got it. Should we be open on a Saturday or one evening a week to accommodate working families? Let's see. I think, Mindy, we're going to start with you.
Julie, yes, I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at, and there are a lot of different ways that you can stagger employees, and you can do summer hours on Fridays. That's what Clorox does. Come Friday afternoon in the summer, I'm done at 12:30. I know I've got the rest of the day free.
Okay.
So there's lots of things we can do.
I hate to relate everything back to my brewery days, but my brewery in Tennessee was a 3-shift operation, and at one point the HR office was open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So the midnight shift and the afternoon shift, people never saw anybody from HR. So what we started doing was staggering the hours of the people that worked in there, because they're not there to serve the plant manager or there to serve anybody but the people in the workforce. And this POA office here is to serve the needs of the community. And it can't just be from X to X because, you know, either they need quiet time or they need this or that. We need to figure out a way to keep that office open to serve the needs of the community.
Kathy?
The office hours are 8 to 5. I do believe that if you have an important issue, I think you should make an appointment, especially if it's after 5 o'clock or on a Saturday. I'm sure somebody would accommodate you if it's important. But with electronic transmissions and media today, I think most things can be accomplished via telephone, email. If you need to see somebody in person, make an appointment, and I'm sure that they'll accommodate you after hours. If you were to go to an outside vendor, I'm sure that you would get a lot of, your call is important to us, you're 37th in line, it will be answered within the next 47 minutes or 47 hours. So just realize what you're asking for.
Okay. Jack?
The answer.
Okay, I was distracted. Excuse me.
Well, the community doesn't shut down on the weekends. I know in all my business dealings, it's, you know, we're open when we're open, we're closed when we're closed, but there should be somebody here available at least 2 weekends a month. You know, if they used a dynamic scheduling system, they could have somebody here. Doesn't have to be everybody. They can rotate that day. So one person, 1 weekend a month is working just as a touch point for 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday. I think it makes a big difference to our community, particularly as the demographics are changing here. I think availability and commitment of that staff needs to be them being here and available for us. Again, we are paying them. They are being funded by us, and I think they need to be available to us. I mean, I wish I was fortunate enough to work 8 to 5 every day. It would be a nice schedule for me. But
I agree, we need at least every other Saturday, even if it's just half a day. I think it's just nice to be able to know that if you wanna pop into the office, then you can, you know, it's, and just like Tom said, you do it on a rotating basis, that's the best way to do it.
Okay. Ed?
My name is Linda Cecil, 20-year homeowner.
Address, please. Your address.
Take that microphone.
I'm not sure that mic's on.
Okay, 26 Rosehill Drive, Monroe, 20. The covenants allow for the board to assign an ad hoc committee. My question is, this is a two-question, I'm throwing it into one. Compliance committee we used to have, would you consider an ad hoc committee of reestablishing that? And with the board kind of getting the train off the track, having a steering committee that makes sure that the board is actually working by the covenant.
Okay. Tom, we'll start with you.
Yeah, we had this question the other day. It's a good question. I like the idea of compliance as long as it's done in a positive means. There are ways that you can get people to follow the rules. One way is to spank them if they don't. The other way is to really explain to them why the rules are what they are. I would be fully in favor of it if it's done in a positive manner. And I think the steering committee is critical. I don't think that we'd be in the position that we're in right now if we did have that steering committee.
Kathy?
I would be in favor of both committees. I believe that steering committee would be very important to the board at this time or at any time. And compliance, absolutely. I was one of the forerunners in developing compliance for a corporation that I work for, and I do believe in both of those committees.
I agree with both Tom and Kathy, as well as all the other comments that were made here by my colleagues. It should be reviewed. They're asking for review. It should absolutely be reviewed ASAP.
Again, communication is key here I don't necessarily like that word compliance. I think we can have open, candid dialogue in our community to make sure people are maintaining, compliance, not using that word. I think if we push it, and as you say, spank it, Tom, it creates a negative, very, very negative feel to the community, and that will reflect long-term in our values of our house.
I believe that we, having a compliance committee would be a good idea, but at the same time, and mainly because that could possibly free up some of the POA office staff in having to follow up on people who are submitting infractions for community and everything. But I think at the same time, it needs to be that you, as a neighbor, you need to have conversations with your neighbor. If there's something going on or something happening next door to you, don't just complain to the office. Go and talk to your neighbor first. We need to communicate with each other to try and get things moving a little bit.
Okay.
Yes, I would be in favor of both of those committees. I think they're both important and could be very beneficial to our community.
Okay. To the folks up front, I know I got some questions up here. Ed, you got one more back there?
I do. Working our way up front. This is from Mary Britton of 1 Amber. Two-part question. You all have impressive resumes and professional experience. Her question is, what personal characteristics do you have that would improve the functionality of the board?
Kathy, we're going to start with you.
I believe in teamwork. No person can accomplish a project or share their goals unless you work with a team. I believe in collaboration, discussion, and moving as one.
Thank you, Kathy. Jack?
I have a history of consensus building, and that probably would have helped solve some of the problems that we just witnessed over the last 6 months with the resignation of board members. If you cannot work together, and if you don't create a condition where that's possible, nothing will happen. You witness the results of that. To me, that alone is a property value issue. It's a very serious thing to have board members just resigning. That should have been avoided at all costs. And believe me, that information is out in the public. That is a property value issue. That's how serious that is. Again, I've been a career solving problems. That was really what my job was in UPS. Conflict resolution, and clearly we have a bunch of that here right now. Teamwork is the answer. The ability to understand how your partners, your teammates on your board are working, how they think, how you can address an issue with them properly to make some headway is the key to it. You can't just be doing this all the time.
Do we have a board that is actively listening to the community? Are they taking these opportunities to hear what's being said? Are they being transparent with all the communication, their notes and their meetings? None of this should be done in the dark. You know, our community will die with that darkness, so that all that information needs to be available to all of our residents here, and I think that's a key piece of it too. You know, if you're able to actively listen, you have strong leadership in the board, and they're transparent with their communication, and they're all moving in one direction for the community. And we don't have the factions of negativity, and I'm not sure why the board members are leaving, but again, it's not great. It shouldn't happen. It shows a lack of commitment. You know, we should have that transparency to move our community forward.
Teamwork is a big one. Discussion and the fact that we all need to be able to compromise. Everybody doesn't get their own way. You have discussions, but you also, during the work sessions, you allow the community to join the discussions with the board. The board doesn't make all the decisions themselves. This is, we again, work for the community, and you all need to give us the input, and then we can all discuss it and possibly compromise and come up with some resolutions.
Yeah, teamwork is imperative. It's gotta happen. You can agree to disagree. As adults, we do that all the time. I don't always agree with my husband, and that's okay. But we find a way to talk it through and find a common ground that's gonna better the community and everyone living in it.
Two things come to mind. The first is objectivity. It is clear, just the fact that we've had two completely separate sets of meet and greets, there is a rift in this community. And it's one side versus another. You think we're Democrats versus Republicans. I am not allegiant to either side. And I'll say that and I'll swear to it. I think it's disgusting what's going on. That being said, I'm a free thinker, and I will listen to everything that's said. I don't go into anything with an agenda or with any presuppositions as to what I think needs to be done. I really don't. It's never worked for me in the past, and it doesn't work for me now. The other thing is tenacity. You can ask Vanessa, I was a reluctant candidate. She reached out to me to see if I wanted to put my name in the hat, and I told her I am enjoying retirement so much. And this is when I was fat, dumb, and happy, thinking that everything was okay. I'm enjoying retirement way too much to get involved in something that's going to take up a lot of time. And then I responded a short number of days later when I started to see the resignations and started doing the deep dives on some of the stuff online. Because I don't take it lightly. I don't just dip my toe in the water. When I make a commitment to do something, I'm in it this deep. It's not just my toe going in the water. And I know it's going to be a great deal of work, but if I wasn't willing to do the work, I wouldn't have my name on the ballot.
Okay, Mary has a follow-up question. What is your understanding of how to go about problem solving?
Jack, we're going to start with you.
Problem solving, Mike, yeah.
Well, first you have to go in understanding that you need to be calm and collected in your discussion, in your thoughts. And be well prepared to explain what it is that you're trying to pursue as a member of that team. But more important is developing relationships with your team members. 7 years on the board, our groups met constantly socially. And what I see now is people leave and go home. There is no camaraderie that I can see that probably is what created some of the problems on that last board. It was just constant conflict. And there's just no way to operate. You have to develop relationships with your teammates, understand how they think. That helps you create consensus. You listen to your teammates, and you try to present issues that they can accept a little bit more easily, knowing where their issues are. So teamwork, I don't care if you're playing basketball, any sport, or any decision-making process. It's extremely important to understand who you're playing with.
I guess you really need to break down the issue of the root cause of that problem. And again, that's getting the group together and understanding what everyone's thought process is behind it. You know, when we drive the business forward, and what I do is we always go to the youngest manager first and try to get their insights and understanding what they're thinking about whatever that problem might be. And it's no different whether it's in the board or if it's with just a group of coworkers. You need to listen and understand what's being said, and then you need to find a solution behind what had created that issue in the first place and resolve it from that. It's generally, we never look at our problems, we always look at them as there's opportunities for improvement. So that's how we generally go about it in my business, is taking that opportunity to improve upon whatever that possible problem was, and then moving the whole team forward to make it, feel good to everybody, so everybody feels like they had input in resolving that issue.
I agree. Everybody needs to understand what the problem is and agree that your understanding is the same. That my perspective of what the problem is not the same. It's the same as what Mindy's is. We need to all agree that the problem is this. Then what you need to do is you discuss and you listen, and you, in the end, you need to realize that somebody's going to have to compromise, or both sides will need to compromise. There is no right and there's no wrong, but to resolve problems, it's all about listening, discussing, and compromise.
Yeah, agree. But I also think that one of the first things you have to do in order to solve a problem is recognize that there is a problem. And everybody has to be willing to admit, you know what? That is a problem. So now let's all come to the table, sit down, talk it through. What is your idea? What is your idea? How are we gonna meet in that middle and do that compromise for the betterment, not for ourselves, but again, for all of the property owners that are sitting here today that live in this community. That has to be the goal of every problem that we try to solve. How are we improving our community?
This is my favorite question so far. A problem properly identified is half solved. If you can identify what the problem is, you're halfway there. And it sounds crazy, but if you're not identifying a problem and if you're addressing a symptom, that's when the law of unintended consequences kicks in, and it usually makes the problem worse if you're not addressing the problem. So there are actually some formal means of doing that. I've been to some training that Kepner Trago puts on a school that is amazing in what it does as far as it can be a health issue, it can be a mechanical issue, it can be a social issue, it can be a community issue like this, to talk about what is and what is not in order to find out what the problem is. Julie, you got started off on a great problem-solving exercise when you asked why about the budget. The 5 whys is the most common way to identify what a problem is. If you ask why and somebody comes back with something that is not the problem, you say, okay, then why is that? And you get down the road, usually by the time you ask why, the 5th time, you've identified what the problem is. Sometimes it takes a long time, and sometimes it makes people in the room uncomfortable when you're doing it, because it's really frustrating for people who have a preconception of what the problem is, and they'll do everything that they do to protect their perception of what the problem is instead of being open-minded about what it might be. So whoever asked that question, I appreciate it.
Conflict is a result of people and individuals being passionate about a common thread. If you listen to everybody and ask them for their opinions, you may have several different opinions. Yours may not always be right. It's to go into a situation or a meeting with an open mind and with no agenda.
Yes, you had your hand up. You still have a question?
I do.
It's your turn.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dana Tom Danju, and I live at 15 Morning Miss Place. And my husband and I built here 4 years ago on the golf side, and my horse resides on the equestrian side. And the equestrian contract is one of the contracts that will be coming up for rediscussion this summer. So my question to you all is to help us understand where you stand on the spectrum of, on one end, profitability out of our amenities, which has been a big discussion. It's come up in all the speaker presentations. But on the other end, determining the value of the amenity for the sake of maybe other intangibles that it brings to our community. So on those two opposite spectrums, where do you fall in managing the two of those?
Are we just talking the equestrian center or
No. All. I mean, for me, I'm specifically concerned about that, but for everybody here, for all. Yeah, where do you stand on that delicate balance of profit versus other things, intangibles that it provides the community?
Equestrian center alone, I would say that should be it's an amenity to the community. Obviously, we're having somebody else run it. Is it a profit line on our P&L? You know, is she leasing all that space, and what are we seeing from it as a community? You know, I enjoy walking through there. It's pretty, and you know, I like horses. Is it something, am I gonna have anything in there? Probably not, but I really enjoy that it's there. It certainly needs upkeep and maintenance. I don't think it's to the standard of the rest of the community. I think there's several things like that, but you know, our amenities are precious here, and we should continue to look to improve them every single year. We should have dollars allocated to improve our amenities every year in some way, shape, or form from a capital planning perspective.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. We need to have, we need to make sure that we maintain our amenities. Can we make more off of them? Yes, I believe we can. I think through better contracts. You know, this clubhouse is a perfect example. The golf course. There are other ways that we could possibly have better contracts written so that we have better income coming in, revenue coming in from these different places. Also, I do believe that monitoring the people that are coming in to use the amenities, again, we can build a fee structure some way or another for that.
Yes, I do think we have to look at the intangibles that our amenities do bring, as well as the profit. Just from my personal viewpoint, you know, the equestrian center, yes, there's some rent being paid, but you know, there's a whole field over there that isn't being used. What if, even for the property owners that don't really know what goes on over at the equestrian center, you know, what if someone took them through there, offered that as an option? You know, are there horse clinics that could be done in that field that for the Rose Hill community to give everyone a little bit more knowledge? Yes, to answer your question though, the short answer is yes, I think we have to weigh both of those things, and it is a fine line, it is a balance, but they're both important.
And I apologize, I don't know enough about the equestrian center to be able to speak to that, but I think that all of the amenities that we have in this community that we all share, it should be as painless as possible for the residents of the community to use, and we should be trying to, I don't want to rob anybody to come in here from the outside and use it. We should make it worth our while for anybody coming in from outside to use any of the amenities that we have in-house.
The equestrian contract is coming due for renewal in June of this year, and I believe that it is under review, and at the current time, Rose Hill members are subsidizing the equestrian center, as we are with Low Country Kitchens. That's why I got involved originally with the contract reviews. We are a not-for-profit organization, but we certainly are not charitable. So I believe that the next contract for the equestrian center will provide us with more events that will be beneficial to all the members, and we will learn more about what goes on at the equestrian center, and it may be monetarily also beneficial for us, for Rose Hill, and without disturbing the polo fields.
I was talking about the polo field. The other understanding that needs to be talked about is the 18 homes that border the polo field have their own covenants and control. If it's not a horse event, you need to get permission to do whatever it is you're doing there. If it's not a horse event, if you want to have a concert there, which many, many years ago did happen in Rose Hill. I think Joe Hope was involved in some of those things. And you needed all 18 members of basically bordering that polo field that live on Plantation House Drive to agree, or you could not do it. So there's some restrictions by actual homeowners that would prevent some things from happening over there. I've heard comments, why don't we have some things out there, soccer field, some kind of sporting contest for our younger families now. It has to be passed by all the people who live alongside the polo field. Not saying that they wouldn't agree with it, but that's how it works. So basically, all these contracts are suffering, in my view, right now. Equestrian Center, I believe, if you read these documents, was a triple net. And where you see those pieces of information is in the outside audit. Every year, they're done annually, and they review every contract, they give you the numbers, they show you exactly what's happening, and they do a comparison from the year before, so you can see what happened in 2 years. And if you look at equestrian, you'll be shocked at what Eddie Maple was paying there. It was a triple net lease. He paid $50,000 a year to rent that space. He also paid all the electric, all the utilities, all the water, everything, and maintained it. There's an issue, of course, that was always an issue with any contract, maintenance thereof, even in a golf course. So there's a lot that we're talking about here, and you need to know all the information, and the best place to find that is in that outside audit. It's very detailed. It's in the comments section. There's 14 pages of comments that give you tremendous detail.
Okay. Ed, I think we have the lady here in white, and then we got the guy in the back, and that's going to be it, I think. We're going to wrap it up at that point.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Weatherford, 5 New Trotters Place. There has been just a theme of miscommunication, misinformation, not really knowing what's going on behind the scenes. I'm involved heavily in this neighborhood's improvement, I hope. And a lot of the ideas that are put out there are actually in place in some form or another. So I just wonder what your specific solution to our current communication issue might be, if you have something specific.
With regards to the current communication issue,
When it comes to between the POA board and the members of the community that we hear so loudly. Does that make sense? Yes?
you guys got that? You get to start.
I think a lot of the communication issues are the fact that, in long-range planning, I'm gonna use that as an example, and the pools. I was told that there are long-range planning plans on the website. Well, I went to the website and I found little boxes under long-range planning that had little dollars amount under it. And then I would click on it thinking I was going to see a detailed plan. It wasn't there. If we're gonna vote on a pool or we're gonna put a pool in, then we need to know what those plans are. You know, especially with long-range planning, you need to know what the plans are. And if, with the pool, it would be nice if we could be given options and maybe vote on them. As far as meeting minutes and everything, I recognize that Crystal was out and Kristen tried as hard as she could to stay current and everything. You know, things fell behind. And people felt like it was, or at least I would say, I felt like, well, why can't I get the information? Why can't I go back and look at what happened at this board meeting? Or why can't I see what the financial statement stated? Why can't I see a detailed long-range plan?
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with what Nancy said. When you go to try to find those things on the website, you're not successful. I know that meeting minutes fall behind. They don't get posted on a regular basis. Working session meetings, I mean, I spent a Saturday and went through the entire website and listed everything that was missing. There have been no GM meetings since like 2019. Posted on the website. That's a problem. You know, everybody says, well, it's on the website, it's on the website. No, I'm sorry, I disagree, it's not on the website. and you can't find it. And if the property owners of this community are going to be put on the hook for $2.5 million line of credit, whether it's a line of credit or a loan, without knowing the backup of where that money is going, yes, we have the bucket, but we don't have the details. It's not right. That's why you have a communication problem, or a perceived communication problem, because we don't have the detail behind that. And if there's not a plan, say that, but say by the end of March or the middle of April, we're gonna have those plans, and we'll be happy to share them with you at that time. But not addressing it and just saying that we're spending all this money, it's a problem.
The irony with electronic communication is that it's free and it's underutilized, and that's across the country. There's a lot of needless communication that takes place that I wish would go away, but there's a lot of meaningful communication that needs to be enhanced. The letter that came out from the treasurer here a few weeks ago talking about the sprinkler project and some other things, that was a good communication. It was a little bit shallow, and it was way too late to come across, but that's a good example of what that meaningful communication would look like. Same thing with the split ballot. You know, I'm kind of disappointed that Joel's the only one that brought up the split ballot in here, because it's an important topic. I'm still waiting to hear anybody from the board tell me why. And because the lawyer said it's okay is not the reason why. There had to be a reason why it was done the way that it was. Joel pointed out that it's circumventing 20-odd years of history here, of the way it was done. It's circumventing the way that the majority of the candidates were told it was going to be split out, with the highest number of votes received per successful candidate would get the longer terms. That made sense then, that makes sense now. I'm still waiting here. I'm waiting right now to hear why, you know, and I haven't heard that yet, so.
The communication issue, I guess, I haven't experienced that because I have been attending the board meetings and the work session meetings, and with the audit committee, I'm very well aware of what's been going on in the community. But I do believe that if members cannot make those meetings or attend committee meetings, that information should be on the website. And again, full disclosure.
No excuse for not posting minutes. I can't give you any valid reason why that should happen the way it did, especially the length of time. I understand COVID, I understand health issues, I understand resignations and pressures that were created by all of that. But find some way to get that done, to have no minutes up there for months, that creates a perception that's deadly, really, in terms of what's going on. Even though, knowing all these folks, I know they would do nothing to hurt this community, but that did have an effect. That just shouldn't happen. If somebody had told me and asked me to transcribe, I would have done. Just a lot of pressure that caused that breakdown. In terms of the communication, to me, I think that's how you started.
A solution.
Yeah. I think that website, I kept hearing that website was going to have an update proposed by communications to almost create a Facebook page there. That people should pose their questions there and get an answer. I don't know how that would work, but I think they're talking about that, and I would hope that would happen. That might solve a whole host of problems if people can pose their question and get an answer on their website. But that would only be available to community members, not outside folks.
Thank you, Ken.
You know, we should utilize some technology. You know, a slide chart of communication would be great. It would have layered on it every single project that we either have approved, in planning, in review. Our strategic plan would be on it. But let's just take road paving for example. I had no idea that was happening on my street until they started digging up the road. And again, there was I think the email came out the day before, and the fact that I didn't check my email was the case that I didn't know the road was being paved. But again, using a slide chart that has dates 3 years out, it's easily to see what's going on, has everything planned into it, all of our maintenance is scheduled into it, all of our strategic planning and approved projects are planned into it, so it's easy to read, it's easy to see, and the committee would probably appreciate that piece of communication as well.
Thank you, Tom. All right, this is gonna be our last question.
Mark Christ, 174 White Oaks. We've got various contracts out here, and in your opinion, how much time should be devoted to generating the new RFPs or expressions of interest so that we know and we understand that we cover all the terms and the conditions? And then in section 9 of the contract, you've got where there's exceptions that this proposal comes back and understands what they want to do instead of just inadvertently slapping something together and let's put it on the street.
All right, Mark, can you narrow that down?
Okay, how much time should be devoted in preparing RFPs to make sure we cover all the terms and conditions?
That's an important piece of it. We should absolutely have a 90-day planning period with that RFP. And there should be more than just the board engaged in that. We should use, there's a ton of extraordinarily talented people that live in here with specialties and everything we're going to do long-term. So if we're gonna reach out and spend money, whether it's pools, I can't believe we're gonna spend $1.5 or $1.7 million in a pool. It's gonna be like Disney World, I'm guessing, right? But we should be reaching out to people with proficiencies in putting that or asking the right questions before we go into RFP. And it should be going to 3 or 4 companies. We shouldn't be just taking the lowest bid. We should be taking best quality, turnaround time. We should be building in fines and penalties for late work being done. All that stuff should be built into everything we do. And it should be attached to all the contracts we have here on site. Whether it's we're subsidizing the food service, which I can't believe we're doing, we should be subsidizing ourselves if we're gonna eat here. And all of our contracts. So 100% we should be putting at least 90 days in advance into that planning process. And it should be reviewed by the community before it goes out.
I agree with everything that Tom said. The contracts are critical to the revenue here. And, you know, if you're just pulling a contract together and saying, you know, well, here you go, this is what we're gonna go with, then you just can't do that. You need time to plan and then submit it out, like Tom said, to multiple vendors and get it back and review again.
I would think we would want to start that process a minimum of 90 days out. In some cases, we may need to go a little bit longer than that. It's just going to depend on the contract. But I definitely think that it needs to be more than 30 days.
Yeah, we should have a standard calendar, whether it's a 30-day or 45 days, that would have benchmark timelines. This is due by this date, by this date, by this date. And the other thing I would tag onto that is, I need to find out when the last time that we put our security up for bid, or the last time we put the landscapers up for bid. Because if people think that they're just gonna be renewed, the contract's gonna be renewed, they're gonna get lazy and complacent, and before you know it, you're gonna regret having not put it up for bid, a year into the new contract.
The standard benchmark is usually 90 days out, but I believe in having a review of those at least 6 months out and knowing what's coming due. I do believe that all contracts that we have for Rose Hill community should be reviewed in depth. And I've already seen one that's been reviewed and taken care of. I'm expecting 2 more this year. And if there are members of the community who have contractual experience, perhaps you ought to volunteer and step up to the board and advise them that you have that experience. I'm sure that they readily accept it. Thank you.
Just to be clear, are you talking about creation of RFPs Was that part of your question?
Yes, creating and make sure we get all the terms and conditions in place for the contract.
Several of these RFPs, the one that was just the irrigation system, we actually hired a firm to create the RFP. I mean, what do we know? The expertise is not in here to create that RFP, and that's also true of the original landscape maintenance contract. That's a 30-page document that's so detailed, they weren't even sure what they were bidding on. And actually, the company that's here now thought they didn't have to mow the outside meridian. But it was in that RFP, one sentence, and they have to go out and do that, much as they should ready. So you need to, especially with this golf course issue, the gentleman that we hired, there were 3 or 4 people that bid for that, or to create the RFP. He stays through it right to the end. He comes in and manages that process on top of the pipe management and the heads and all the components of it. They all have different oversight people here now, all under contract. That's been the process here. As long as I can remember, the same thing with the refreshing center of what, unless you own a horse and are involved in that amenity as a board member, you need to seek outside review and to create that RFP. That was done the last time. So it happens here. Timeframes clearly can't be the same for all of them. Some are a lot more detailed. And for instance, the stock operation took a year to finally settle on the termination of a year to settle on a person to create the bid, people to oversee the bid, and then people to install. Several different RFPs were created to make that process happen. So I think it's being done. Probably not communicated very well to the community with a question like that. So that's where that website has to change.
We're right up against noon. Folks, first of all, we have 6 wonderful professionals up here with a lot of great ideas. Thank you. Number 2, you guys were listening intently. How many times did we hear somebody up here say that we can solve some of our problems if we're willing to listen? You guys were willing to listen today. Give yourself a round of applause. And give Mr. Varcho a round of applause for listening around the room. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Sure.